Hi. So these are the colors. I'm just using an old cutting board. So a lot of times I'll put saran wrap. That's a tip I'll just share that works for me. Saran wrap over top of if my paints from drying out quickly. I will use a layer of saran wrap, and it actually keeps the moisture in the paint really well. I've chosen the magenta. On the material list, I think I put red and red or magenta, which either one really can work. It's magenta sort of is a little more. You can make a few more colors with it, but when you're looking for that pink hue, then these don't have to be exactly. And I've done this painting a couple times, and I'm going to show you in a minute the differences in the backgrounds of them. They're even different shades. It's never going to be exactly the same. You can even swap the background in and do a totally different color if you'd like. And there's my paint dripping in together, but that's okay. So I'm going to put this back down. I just wanted to show you the palette that I had set up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just show you the brush that I'm going to start off with. So this is actually just a dollar store brush. There's nothing fancy. I mean, I have other styles of this brush, but I just find that as long as it's a synthetic brush, and I find any nylon or synthetic really works well for acrylic paint. And yeah, this is just this is called a wash brush a lot of the time, but I always call it a background brush, but it's because it's very wide and I can kind of cover a lot of space with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just go ahead and I'm going to hold this up so you guys can see, but I'm going to just mix a shade, and you can totally like tweak this to however you like. If you wanted it a little more vibrant pink or what have you, you can add some in, and I just go ahead and dip. I mean, you can use a palette knife or a separate brush if you don't want to get the colors mixed in together. That's probably the more proper way to do it so that you're not mucking up your colors, or even do two separate piles of white. But I tend to just kind of go in there and mix it up. So I'm just going to kind of start with getting that hue there. So it's about half and half, about 50-50 pink and I'll say pink, but it's actually called magenta, rose magenta. But so I'm just kind of getting like a lighter pink, and then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go down here now and I'm going to add this medium yellow, and I'll just show you what I'm using here. Can you guys hear me okay? Can somebody just tell me in the chat whether they're able to hear me? I hope so. So I'm just using here this tub of medium yellow. It's a pretty standard color. You can get different varieties of it. This is a Dessert's brand, but it's pretty standard color across the board. And what I'm going to do, just going to grab a little bit out here. I don't need much of this. This is actually just, I really like the more peachy, and this is totally optional. You can just leave it a straight kind of pink, but I find if you add a little tiny bit of yellow to any kind of a pink hue, it'll give you that kind of like peachy pink, which I think looks nice with this particular painting. So I'm just going to put the lid back on here now. And I'm just going to check and make sure everyone can hear me. Maybe I'll take it. So say, can everyone hear me? And I'm going to stick I have a little cup of water here. I'm just going to stick, another thing I would suggest, if you haven't painted with acrylic before, it's basically like a watercolored, a water-based paint, and it'll dry waterproof, essentially. So what you want to do is, if you're going to be leaving your brush down to the side or something, if you're switching colors or any of those things, maybe I'll stand up here and you can see me. There we go. If you're ever going to be switching your paint a lot, and you're leaving your brush like out in the air for a while, you want to just kind of stick it in the water so that it doesn't dry up on you. You'll get because if acrylic does dry on your brushes, then you're going to get it's going to be really difficult, if not impossible, to get off. So, okay, so Jacqueline said, hi, Jacqueline. And hi, everyone. Yeah, so everyone, I think that you can hear me okay. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this yellow here, and I'm going to actually just mix a little, maybe about a pea-sized amount. I'm just going to actually flick again, and I'm going to kind of mix that in with the pink. And I'm going to actually grab a bit more white. So it's just a nice bit there. And you can kind of just keep lightening this now, this yellow and kind of fuchsia or magenta hue. And you'll see that it gives you kind of like this nice peachy shade of pink instead of just the regular one. And you can add more yellow again until you get a shade that you kind of like there. And hopefully you guys can see that. And this is like a medium flow acrylic, except for this magenta. This is more of a heavy body, so you can see these ones are kind of flowing downwards. You've probably heard of flow paint, where people use them for the flow paintings, where they kind of do the drip paintings, and they're kind of abstract. They're pretty neat. Some of these are just a bit more thick in consistency. But there we go. So you can see there, it's kind of like a peach. So what I'm going to do is, once I have my color mix, and again, you can continue adding those. It's basically half and half of the pink and the white, or the fuchsia and white, and then you just kind of add a little bit of yellow, like at a time, so that it actually just kind of like, until you get that hue that you like, and it doesn't have to be exact. So what I'm going to do, some people will spray their canvas, which I'm actually going to do now. This is totally optional. I didn't do this for years and years and years, and it's really not necessary, but sometimes it does help if you want to get your background to be. This is just a spray bottle with plain old water, and again, I didn't even put this in the material list because it's not super necessary. It's just something, I'm almost doing a habit now. It's you basically can do the same effect with adding a little more water to your brush. It just helps your paintbrush glide a little bit better if you wanted to do that. Or if it was kind of dry, or even if you were like outside in the sun painting, or anything like that, and your brush is just drying up really quick, it kind of helps with that, to have your brush glide. But so what I'm doing is I'm just basically like a sweeping motion. I'm just going back and forth. Let's check. Hi, Maddie. So I'm just going back now. I haven't really gotten any water on my brush at this point, but I may just do a quick dip. I'm going to dip some of these brushes here. But, so I just have this canister here of water, and I'm just going to do a quick drip. I like to kind of go like that, and then I just have like an old rag here, but you can use paper towel or whatever it is that you want. And you just kind of, I like to kind of dab off like some of the water, especially when I'm painting. Like if it gets too watery, it'll take a really long time to dry, and sometimes you'll get those kind of paint drips down your page if it's too liquidy. And I'm just kind of, just going back and forth. Sometimes I'll see people do this, and that's fine. You can achieve different textures that way, but I find if you want to get like the nice even strip, then just kind of try to do all the way to the bottom as much as possible. And I'm just going to go in. Now, what I'm going to do here is, and you notice this isn't very solid. You can see kind of different variations there. I'm going to go in and grab some white, and I'm just going to kind of plunk it right in there. And this is kind of the fun part of this background of this painting. It's really not, it's kind of abstract, so there's no real, it doesn't have to be exact in any way. So I'm just basically grabbing some white on my brush, if you can see there. I'm just going to go ahead and go right into the magenta or a darker color there. And I've got kind of half and half on my brush, and I'm not going to, it doesn't really matter as long as there's a bit of both on each brush. There's no exact amount or anything. just a little bit of both. And if you do this, you'll get these kind of nice little streaks. It's just kind of carefree. Don't really overthink it or anything. Just kind of go in and you'll get these kind of variations in your canvas. And it's just sort of, and you can kind of blend them in. And when I say blend, I just mean if you're laying the brush flat, it'll kind of start to blur out a bit. And you'll just kind of get some nice little streaks in there. Now, if you want to go for a solid background, you can kind of not do that, but it's just something I think adds a little bit of personality to it. Okay, so, and I'm going to kind of just try and go down here and get these white areas. Sort of. There we go. Move them back out. And I'm going to have to get a little more paint on my brush for some of these areas. So I'm just going to go back in. I'm just going to grab some more of this paint here. You guys see that? Yeah, so I never really mixed that pile of paint in to be a solid color because I wanted to get kind of variations in the colors that my brush is laying down. If you wanted a more solid color, the best thing I guess to do would be kind of like make it solid on your palette before you start applying it to your background. I'm going to move my water container before it spills. Okay, so just kind of going back and forth. There we go. I have to admit, it's kind of strange here. I feel somewhat like I'm just kind of talking randomly to myself, but I know that you guys are all there. It's a different experience for me, this whole online stuff, but I'm kind of slowly getting used to it. It's funny because I've kind of been done this same thing in front of even 200 people at one point in time, like one night and one event, but have not felt it's sort of more nerve-wracking to do here, almost because I can't see you. So I'm kind of worried if everyone's okay and they're following along, or if I'm totally confusing anyone. But I'm going to pop over and just make sure everyone's kind of, and also I'm not able to sort of see. I don't like to jump ahead of people as well. I know everyone paints at a different pace, and even some people a lot of people who come to my paint nights and whatnot are actually brand new, never painted in their life, and just coming out to try it. And so obviously they're going to be a lot of times maybe a little. I might jump ahead of them a little bit, not meaning to. So. Okay. Now, so I've got that kind of laid out. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stick my brush in the water. I'm going to pop onto the chat here and just see how everyone's keeping up. I don't know if you can send pictures over that chat or not. If you guys can, I see like a little, and please, like, just know that this is like literally one of my very first times ever kind of on this type of like filming this way. So I'm going to just, I can see that I can send a photo, but I don't know if you guys can. So if you ever wanted to like give me an example of where you're at and show me if you're stuck somewhere or just even how you guys are making out, I'd love to see your photos. That's usually what I do, is I'll run around the room and kind of look and see how everyone's kind of keeping up, or if everyone's at the same place. But if you are falling behind, just type something like, "Hey, wait for me," and we'll try to get you sorted out. But for now, so I'm going to leave that there now. Now, this is going to be when we're going to take our break. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to, and it's really early into the painting, but the background, believe it or not, for a lot of my paint nights is actually the most time consuming, because you do have to wait that little bit for it to dry. And I will say that it's like really tempting to kind of keep painting with it, but I always say, like, if you can, try to let it just dry as soon as you can, as soon as you get it kind of laid out, because this will take the longest, and then you'll be able to kind of, once it's dry, then you can come back, and it's always good to have it as dry as possible, so the next layers will go on great. And also, I always like compare it to nail polish, where if you haven't painted a lot with acrylics, you may, like, some people are oil painters, or they're ink drawers, different things. But acrylic is more so like, I guess, nail polish if for the ladies. I'm not sure, and maybe men, but it's more so like you want to get that first layer down, and it doesn't matter if it looks a little bit patchy or sometimes the canvas will even show through. But I promise you, if you just let that dry and then you put on that second coat, the key is to, yeah, just let that first layer dry. And it doesn't always look great, but when you put the next one on, it'll be more opaque and more solid. So, yeah, I'm going to just leave that there. I'm going to go check the chat and see if anyone has any questions. And then I'm going to also make sure that everyone is sort of at least to the point where their canvas is coated for the background. I don't want anyone still kind of rushing to get caught up with that. And then we can all kind of just take like a 10-minute break. That'll be enough time to let the canvases dry. I'll pop on and just answer any questions anyone may have at this point. And then, and thanks for watching, by the way. And then we'll kind of come back and we'll start with the outlines and the initial shapes for the cactuses. So yeah, I'm really excited to see, and if anyone has any photos they want to take and share with me during that time, I would love to see them. So I'm going to just pop over now. Oh, thank you, Sue, for your comment there. I'm glad that I hope it's easy to follow along. I'm not quite sure what it looks like from your end, but yeah. Hi, Jacqueline, and I'm just going to scroll up here. Hi, Mom. My mom's here watching, and my Uncle Fred, and I think my Aunt Sharon. Oh, there's my Aunt Sharon. Yeah, my Aunt Sharon's up there somewhere, and my sister, and her husband. Oh, hi, Bobby. Okay, so I'm going to just, I think no one's saying that they're not caught up with the background. And I mean, you can always get that done during the 10 minutes. Hopefully it'll be nice and dry for you. I'm going to just put on a little bit of this music here for anyone who's already caught up and they're just waiting. And yeah, by all means, if you have any, I'm going to let this just kind of sit here and dry. But if you have any questions, please type them in the comments. And I'll see you in 10 minutes. Okay, so I am back now. Hopefully everybody is done. I think I timed that right. I should start looking at the clock with these things. But so my background is still a little bit wet, but it's like pretty tacky. So what I'll do is I'll just start. I'm not sure if you guys can see. Okay. I'm gonna actually move some of these crazy canvases. If you only saw my studio, It's a good thing there's not. It's pretty artist in here. I'll say that because most artists are. I actually had a friend once. I had a messy trunk one time when she was picking something up from, and there was stuff in my car, and I said, "Oh, I'm sorry for the mess," and she said, "You're an artist. If it wasn't a mess, I would be freaked out." It is kind of funny. Yes, we have sort of a method to our madness, I suppose. Okay, so I'm going to clear a spot so I don't trip. Okay, so yeah, this is better now. So you guys can see. Okay, I don't know if my head's cut off or not. But okay, so maybe I'll just see who's caught up here. I think everyone's got their background like laid out. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just grab my palette here. So I'm gonna go with this. I'm gonna lift it up here. So this green here, I'm gonna just start kind of laying my shapes out. Now, what I'm actually gonna do at this point is I am gonna grab this here. This I'm gonna show you guys. Just a second. I gotta grab. I've lost one of my brushes, if you can imagine. Okay. Good thing my head is attached, I always say. So this one here, it's just like an angular brush, and some people call it a shader. You can get this at the dollar store. Pretty fancy. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add a little tiny bit of this like magenta, and you can use your red, either one. I'm going to grab a little pile of the green. It's just about a couple of quarter size amount, and then I'm also going to grab the same amount of the red, or the magenta, sorry. And then I'm going to mix those in together with, I don't know if you guys can see that, but what it does is this basically darkens it up. Mix those in really well there, and then so that's basically instead of using black a lot of the time, like whenever I can avoid it, I like to mix my colors to just darken them with different ways instead of just immediately kind of defaulting to black to darken any of the colors. I like to sort of add different ones in, and I find black sort of if you darken your colors with other colors that are in the painting, it sort of helps not to draw your eye. It's not so bold, and it's a little more subtle, so it doesn't really take away from the rest of the painting as much. I find sometimes if you add black, it'll just kind of it's too strong, or it'll kind of muck up the color too much and take away some of its hue. So this just has a little more depth to it, or something. Okay, so and then I find that that's a little bit too. I'm hitting my painting now. A little bit too red, so I'm gonna grab maybe the same amount, but just give it another bit of green, and it's not going to actually look super green. It's probably just going to look like a weird kind of, I don't even know what you would call this, but it's more of a gray, I guess. And when you mix all that in, you'll probably get like a mucky kind of looking gray, and that's kind of what you want. So oh, I don't know. So on the screen, like I'm looking now, it probably looks a little bit black to you guys. I'm gonna go up close. Yeah, it looks, I don't know if you guys see the same thing-ish that I'm seeing, but it's a bit more, it is sort of like almost like a gray. So that's just basically, so I want to start, I always like to, usually if I can, move from like dark to light. So whatever's dark in the painting, I kind of do, at the beginning, I'll go from dark, like put my darkest colors down, and then I'll try and do the light. So I'm gonna actually hold up some of these here, because usually I would have like a reference canvas here so you guys could see what I'm talking about. But so this is a little one that I made just the other day when I was filming the pre-recorded version, which I'm actually still editing. And I'm not the most technical. Technology is sort of not my forte. I just paint, and I begrudgingly um, use the technology, which is great, but it's not, it doesn't come natural to me. So I'm still editing, and it will be available at some point when I get it all kind of fixed up and ready. But um, for now, this is just a little one. I filmed painting this entire thing, but I have to edit out all the boring parts before I put it out for you guys. But and also I'll probably this will probably be available now after this live is done for anyone. But so basically what I can do is if you look here, like there's always dark parts of the painting. So these shapes here, this will be there's all the dark areas are kind of showing through, and then. And this is another example of the backgrounds and the differences. I'm going to put my paintbrush down so I don't get paint on any of these. But I'll show you here now. These are like the two different, I don't know if you can see both those. So you can see there, like there's quite a difference in the background colors. This one's quite a bit more light, but it is also that peachy hue. It's the same idea, just I added a lot more white to this one. But I kind of wanted to switch it up and just see how it looked with a little more of a pink hue. So you can do the same, like you can add whatever you think would look good for you. So yep. And actually I made this canvas out of, believe it or not, like 2 recycled old paint nights that I had done that I didn't really like. And if you have any of those laying around, I'm actually going to have a video out soon of how to kind of like use those. You can go buy like a couple yards of just straight artist canvas at like pretty much any fabric store, and you can kind of like screw the frames of them together, like if you tear off the actual canvas, and then you can, it's pretty simple, like you really only need like a staple gun and a screwdriver, and you can kind of add it, it's stapled along the back, and you can stretch it and make a new canvas. And I kind of like how it looks. It has a nice thicker edge to it. So if anyone's interested in that, and it's good too with all that's going on. Sometimes it's hard to get, I don't know, different places have their stores, some of the art stores are closed and stuff. So, okay, so I think that's enough of me talking, and probably enough time for the background to dry. So I'm going to grab my palette here, and I'm just going to take that dark color we just mixed. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of go and I'm going to shape out 3 of these shapes. Now, I always think, like this one here, it reminds me of like a waving, like he's waving or something. I don't know why, I just see that, like a little waving cactus, but he's like saying hello. But these ones here, these 2, you can kind of make any shape at this point that you want. So if you want to do a different kind of setup of these guys, or even just do one, or whatever you want. This is your time to kind of do that if you want to do it differently, or you could even turn your canvas to the side and do them long, like a landscape view, whatever you want, because the cactuses themselves are pretty much the same technique for all 3. So whatever shapes you want to do, it's really, really up to you. So I'm going to kind of stick with the same one just for your viewing, so you can see that how I did that same painting. But if you want to change it up, go ahead. And I always say too, like feel free to change up the colors or any of those things. I'm never offended when someone kind of wants to, like I've been doing paint nights and people will go right away. I've seen people put rainbows in the sky, or just all kinds of different stuff, and I'm just happy to get people painting and getting inspired, creative, I guess. Okay, so there's a basic shape. This is my I don't know if I'm still sticking with the same kind of angular brush, and I'm just doing, like, my brush is laying flat as I'm doing it, so I'm actually just doing the same shape that I see, like, going along and following that same shape. You don't have to do that if you want to add texture and all kinds of stuff, by all means. But I will say that make it too clumpy, it'll be a long time to dry. So okay, so there's my first shape. Pretty, pretty straightforward. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this middle one here. So that's just going to be, I'm going to say right about here, and then we'll do that last guy next. Okay, so let's just start with the top. So when I'm doing this, like whenever I'm painting with this brush, I like to point, I'm going to put my palette right here. So whenever I'm painting with this one, I like to paint with the tip of it, which like this part here, away from the direction I'm painting. And if you pull it straight out, it'll actually give you like a really nice clean edge. Some people ask me how I get that edge, like how you get an edge where it's not kind of fuzzy. Like if I were just doing it this way, well, now it's making me lie already, but sometimes it gets a little bit breaky. So if you just kind of pull it out, and I always say the tip of it, the opposite direction that you're painting, and then I just go kind of straight down. And you can dip, like if you find that your paint's getting patchy, or like right here, like I don't know if you can see that so good, but there's little kind of breaks in it in the nice clean line. You can just dip a little bit of water on your brush and just make sure that you kind of give it a little bit of a dab, just so it's not like dripping wet, so you don't get like random paint drips down your page or your canvas. So there we go. So then once you got the outline, you can kind of just go crazy and fill in the middle. There's not too much to worry about as long as you stay within the lines. And I'll just go back. We'll do that one edge. So yeah, I'm doing like a sweeping motion. So I'll do that like slowly right here so you guys can see what I'm doing. Yeah, you just basically smooth it all out. And I really can't wait to see how everyone's turns out. These are kind of a fun one because it's pretty forgiving because you can kind of change the shapes and stuff. Not a whole lot of rules to this painting. I'm just kind of doing that because my palette, I don't know if you guys can even see that well. Probably not. I'm going to change this little angle again. You can see. I have like a random camera hanging from a lamp, like a desk lamp. Kind of put together. I've bought all kinds of crazy contraptions, but ends up I ended up using that. It's a little bit overhead, so hopefully the angle's a little bit better for you guys. I needed something that kind of hung up there that my head wasn't in the way of. Okay. So there we go. I've got those two, and I'm just going to check the chat here to make sure. Oh, you guys can't hear me. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me? It says I can't hear you, and then I can hear you again. Can you all hear me? I'll say. I'm not sure anyone's still with me here, but hopefully. I'm not seeing. Nope. And then said I see background. Oh, and she said I can. Yes, yes. Okay, perfect. All right. Hopefully everyone's with me here. Okay, so next I'm just going to do, so I'm going to just kind of shape this one out a little bit better. I'm painting it sideways here because I'm kind of off to the side, so my head might get in the way here of your view, but I'm going to just shape my cactus a bit better here. There we go. Okay, so I always say, like, when you're filling in these middles, try to like go and really like smooth that all down, because if you get, like, for instance, like if you had a big blob there like that, I don't even know if you can see that, but if you did, it would, that area there would obviously take a really long time to dry when you want to go in with your second coat. That's going to be little area where it's going to kind of cause you grief. Okay, so there's that one. Now I'm going to go back in, and this one here, I'm just going to make him off the side. He's maybe a little shape kind of poking out from the side of the canvas, and I'll fill that in. Kind of trying to get my paint laid out here. Oh, right off the side there. Okay, I'll just redo that edge there. And I'm going to add a little water to my brush here because it's getting kind of dry. And just follow shape around like that. And I'm gonna do sometimes, like if I've got a big area to cover in, I do these little X's like here, and it sort of helps you fill it in, and then you can go after and kind of smooth it out if you want. Use the same shape of the. I like to make my brush strokes a lot of the times in the shape. So, like for instance, this is this shape, so I'll go around and I'll smooth everything out to that shape. It doesn't really matter when you're looking at it from afar, but in a finished painting, like that'll all dry, and sometimes you can see these crazy brush strokes, and if you're going for texture, that looks cool, but it's nice if you keep everything sort of uniform. Sometimes it's nice that you can really see the shape that you shape it out like that with your brush strokes right from the beginning. It'll show in the end. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just kind of rinsing out my brush. I'm going to just, this one here is probably, it's still pretty wet. Now these three shapes, I'm going to go back in and start adding some greens to them. Now, the main idea here is to keep the dark on one side, which is, I'm going to say the left. You can change it up if you want, but I'm going to do like a kind of a shadowing. So now that you've got your layer on there of the dark, I rinse my brush in my water, and I always suggest like dabbing it off. You kind of want to be working with like a clean, dry brush. It doesn't have to be. It's okay if there's a little bit of paint still on there. Just you want it to be mostly dry and free of paint. And then so what I'm gonna do, I'm still working with the same medium kind of angled brush here. And I'm going to go right in with my straight green, like the original green color we had. Just hold this up just evenly. And then, so I just kind of saturated my brush. And I'm going to come in. And I'm going to go right here on the sides. So I'm angling my brush. I'm going to try to stay within the lines. And sometimes I'll start right in the middle. I run a little bit over, but so see, you can see the shadow or the highlight kind of like wrapping around. So I'm just going to put some green there. And I'm going to do that for each side. So just give a generous amount of green on your brush and just kind of, highlight for the lighter areas. And I'm going to do the same for all three of those. So, and this again, it's like not exact. Don't worry if like there's a certain amount you're over or anything like that. I just say like, basically like maybe a third of the way over, roughly. It's not super like exact or anything like that. And I like to kind of add like a nice little, just like a little curve, almost like a little candy cane shape or something at the top. And yeah, hopefully you guys can see that somewhat well. And I'm not doing it. So I just did that. Now, I don't want to jump ahead of anyone. But what you're going to want to do after, I always say like lay your shape down and then shape. So like these are my shapes. And then what I do is I really rinse my brush well. Like I'll even rub it off the bottom of the cup, like so that as much paint gets off as possible. And then you're going to just really squeeze the water out of the brush. So I'm working with like a dry brush, and there's like hopefully not too much paint rubbing and stuff on that. And then, because that's the best thing for blending. And then what I'm going to do is, this is not a very good example, and I'm not sure if you can see it close enough. So I'll just do it here, just so you know what I mean. Like, so what I do, if this were here, I like see where there's like a nice clean line. When I'm blending, I want to go right between the two colors. So these are the two colors, the green and the darker kind of green mixture. what I'll do over here is I'll put my brush like right, pretend this is like the clean line. I'll put it right half and half like that. And then what you're going to do is you're basically going to like put pressure down and then sweep up and down like that. But like hold it down. Like I'll do it over here, but just kind of do that. And then as you do that, you're going to end up like picking up more paint as you go on your brush. But then from time to time, like after every few brush strokes, you're going to want to rinse again and then kind of like pat dry. And that's the best tip I always say for blending. Like just keep in mind you always kind of want to have ideally a clean dry brush with like it needs a little bit of moisture just to kind of because your paints will start drying. You need to be able to kind of like loosen it a bit, but as you go, a lot of times people will sort of keep blending, and then there's like all this paint mucked up on the brush, and they're not getting that nice blending effect. So, I mean, I'm gonna do this here to show you guys. And this is probably going to be pretty, pretty foolproof. Where like these two colors are so similar that the blending's very forgiving. But it's a good tip for when if you really need to blend something that's very contrasted and get that nice kind of blurred effect. So that's blurred. It's really subtle, so I mean you may not be able to see it super well, but you probably will on your own canvas. Now I just rinsed and I call it dip and dab. So I dip my brush in the water and then I dab it off with the cloth. I always like to remind people of that because a lot of times, even when I first started painting, I would get all kinds of water on my brush and then I'd have this like really nice painted thing here, and I put too much water, and then this ugly kind of paint drip down. And I just got mine off the edge a little bit, so it's okay. I'll probably just make it a little bigger there. I don't know. Except you guys. Okay, so and I do the same thing here. I'm just going right on that edge, and I'm following that curve there. So there, you got a little bit of green there. So that's the idea. As these dry more and more, you're going to want to kind of just keep continuing to increase the hues of those. So that's the general idea. So I showed you like how to kind of do that middle blending. So what you're literally going to do is just continue to add more and more light here and more dark here. So what I'm going to do now is just go the next step, and I'm going to add a little bit of yellow and a little bit of green, probably like half and half. So what that's doing, and this one here, is it's adding like an even brighter color of green, because I want that green now to be really highlighted on one side. I'm even going to add a little bit of white. So about half and half of the green and the yellow, and then when you add white, it makes it kind of this nice like lime green, I guess. And there's no exact thing. What you're really just going for is a color that's going to really contrast this, like really pop. You want it to be very different. So if you see there, like you can see that really well. And yeah, so I'm going to add my shapes. Oh, and I just got a little bit dark in with that. And I put a little bit of, I accidentally, on my palette here, put a little bit of the dark color into my nicely mixed colors. So I'm going to mix those. Kind of mucked it up a bit. Okay, so I got roughly the same color here. So I'm going to go back, and I always say like add your shape first. So there's your shape. And then I'm going to go here, and do the same thing. So those are basically highlights. And then with this brush now, I'm going to rinse it because I'm going into blend. And it's just, it's kind of my own practice, just the way that I've kind of learned to paint. But I always say, like, this is a step that's, like, super important in a lot of the paintings, but it's something that's, like, so easy to miss. It's just that, like, extra rinse of the brush. It really, like, does wonders. When you're trying to blend. If you just give it a rinse and dry, it'll really help you to get things done, get the colors to pop faster and blend faster. So now I've done those two, and as you can see, like, you're starting to get this kind of subtle variation. So you just kind of keep on working with them. Add more white now, and I'm doing that here. So you'll see this is really light. Like I grabbed a bit of pea size amount and I blended it right in, and the colors are very different now. And I might even add a little bit of yellow just to kind of give a little different hue. And then, so now you see like this is the darkest, this is like the next step in darkness, and then you add another third, you're brightening it up even more, right? And then you come in and I just basically added that. And then I'm going to add one here and one here. And I just am laying my brush flat there and coming around like that kind of candy cane shape. And I always say, like, don't overthink it. Just if you're having trouble blending, and don't worry, because even especially if you're not like a regular painter, it's something that a lot of people will like stress out or worry about. And I always say, just don't overthink it. As long as you've got that gradual light to dark, it's going to look fine. So I'm going right on that edge, like I said. I'm going to go up and down, just softly blend that a little bit. And I'm going to, sometimes like if you don't have to like totally rinse the brush every time. Sometimes I just do a quick wipe too, like that. And it's kind of half dry. Yeah, so I just blended those. Now, I'm going to go in now and I'm going to grab this green, this straight green. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go like right here in the middle kind of area, just to kind of, I find that these colors have sort of really like almost muted the actual green hues. I'm going to grab a little more green and do like that same candy cane shape, but I'm going to stay away from the lighter side, just kind of in the middle, that little candy cane shape. And here, because I find like this is really almost like really super light green, but I've lost some of that actual green that we want. Okay, so there's my shapes that I've laid down. So I would say like lay the shapes down. And this part's a little bit like maybe there's a lot of steps that I'm kind of like throwing at you guys, but honestly, it's really just the light to dark. So if you have a way that is working for you and you can just kind of slap on, if you could even do like the light, the green, and then like a darker hue and kind of start blending all those in together, as long as you get that like gradient effect. This is just like the sequence that I do it in. Okay. And like I said, it doesn't have to be exact. It's just, none of, even my own paintings that I repaint them, as you saw, are going to be slightly different. But they all kind of turn out their own little way. It's kind of a fun painting that way. And that's why I always say, like, just don't overthink it. Is kind of. And also, I always find that when people come to my paintings and sometimes I'll do this. This is like, it seems like counterintuitive, but sometimes if you take like all this dark here, or this like light color, and you kind of just wrap it around like that, the other side a little bit. It kind of just ties everything together a little bit. There's a little bit of always like a lighter shadow here, even on the dark area. If you look at any kind of photo really close, you'll see when something's shining bright on one side, there's always this kind of bounce of light right along here that's highlighted. So sometimes it's nice, and you can probably barely see that on that camera, but sometimes I'll do that. I'll just take this lightness and I'll wrap it around. It doesn't have to be super. Okay, so as that dries now, so I'm just going to leave that there. You can kind of see how it's starting to take its shape. Hi, Michelle. I'm just peeking at the chat now because I get carried away. I'm in my zone here and I forget. Normally, I'm bouncing around the room and kind of looking at everyone's pieces and getting some feedback, but it's different for sure to kind of speak here on this. So, okay. There. Okay, so there's a gradual kind of change there. So now, believe it or not, so we're about an hour in here. I think, like I said, well, in Nova Scotia time, and I just bumped my head off the camera. Okay. All right. We use my high-tech lamp arm here. Okay. Well, that's good for now. Yeah, you guys can't really see the bottom. There. Okay. I'm not going to touch it anymore because I'll make it worse. But yeah, so I'm going to take a moment here. I'm not sure if you guys can post pictures on there. Can anyone tell me if there's like an option for you guys to post or share photos? And I won't put any pressure on anyone to do that. You may not feel comfortable, but even if I could just know, because I'm kind of curious. It would be really cool to just see like someone like see where they're at right now with their painting. But I'll just leave that there. Well, I don't even know if you guys can hear me. Can anybody hear me still? I should double check. So I haven't heard anyone say anything in a while. Okay, I just texted my sister. Said she can hear me. Okay. Well, that's good. They're my biggest fans. Mine look like cucumbers. Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, they're kind of a funny stage in the painting. All right. Basically, yeah. All right, so what I'm going to do is these also kind of need to dry a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do the little shapes of the arms because they don't need a whole lot of shading. You can always even do little ones after. So I'm going to do the little arms on the cactuses and even that little flower. You can totally do whatever color of flower you want or leave the flower off, whatever you want to do. But I'm just going to do that to sort of leave this to dry a little bit and get it a bit more tacky so that I can add some of those really brighter hues. And then really all that's left is to kind of go down these cactuses with those little, I'm going to bring up this one here to just show you what I mean. So you've pretty much got a lot of the main, like that was more like the tricky area of the painting. Like it's, believe it or not, it's just that background and like it surprises a lot of people that the background and the first layer are often the very, like the most time consuming of the piece. So now it's really just the fine details. So I'm gonna hold this up. So like right here, you see like this is all this is just that gradient or light to dark. And then you've got these kind of like dots of white and that's really all it is. And you just kind of curve those around and you've got some of these like star shapes or like kind of like prickles that are popped out here and there, and you can kind of have fun with that and do your own thing. I'm going to go through and just show you how I sort of do mine. But again, like both of my paintings that I just did are different again. Like I just sort of kind of just put them in here and there and whatever looks right with each piece. But here's the little flower and these are just really lines. As you can see, I don't know if you can see these up close. I'll put them right up. Now, if you look like these aren't really like uniform, right? They're very almost like random, and that's intentional. Like I don't know what it would look like if you put them like exactly in a row, but like and exactly spaced apart. But I kind of like that they're more just sort of loose and abstract, almost blurry, like and different lightnesses too. Like some will have a really thick bit of paint, and then others will just be when your paintbrush starts running out of paint, you can just put like this one, for instance, is very light, and you just kind of, and then even some areas where I kind of like put a dot and then streaked down a little bit to the next dot. It's just ways I like it to kind of be not so perfect. But yeah, I mean, if you wanted to do it very like very exact, I'd be curious actually to see what that would look like. But anyway, so I just kind of curved these also. Like all of these lines are just in the curve that the outside perimeter of the cactus is. So really we're just going to add these two arms and a little flower on top. And then each of these, something I will note is each of these cactuses, if you look around the perimeter of every single one of them, is got the dots on the outside, and each dot is sort of half and half of, like, it's like half on the cactus and half just sort of in the background, so kind of protrudes a little bit in most areas. And then the only place I didn't really put, oh sorry, I'll have to lower it a bit. The only place I didn't really actually put these like little dots on the outside of the cactus was just at the top of this one. And I guess just visually, like, it just seemed like the light should be not hitting this top area. So I just kind of, because it's yeah, I just saw it as like coming kind of down the two sides. So yeah, that's what we're gonna do. The best way to kind of, especially with these ones, like not so much the middle, but these two, you're gonna want to like really wait for this to dry, and you're gonna come back and really lighten these two up. Like you can see here, this one's pretty much the color that it's going to be for the most part. Wow. You can add different, you can totally like make them pop more with more highlights and have fun with it, but I'll just show you this one too. It's a little bit different, but it's the same idea where I've got the light to dark, and it's a little more detailed with this one, I guess, if you call it that. Like there's more streaks and different kind of shadows within the cactuses, but overall it's kind of the same idea. A little bit more pink of the background too. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll start with these, I'll start with the arms, and that'll buy me a little bit of time to kind of add those arms in. So I'm going to actually grab that little angle brush. So we've been painting for the most part with the bigger one. So, and I mean, you don't have to switch, it's just what I feel comfortable with. And I added it to the supply list, I believe, because I think it's like just easier for me to get the littler angles and get into the tight corners and stuff with this little one. So I don't know if you can see that, but so I've got my palette here. So I'm gonna actually just go ahead and grab this dark color again. Actually, if yours is still wet, sometimes these like little patches of paint dry up pretty quickly. So if you don't remember, this was just like I may actually grab a little bit more and maybe I'll just mix it in, and a little bit of, maybe that's too much, but about half and half of the fuchsia. And then I think I added like a little bit more green because it was a little bit too like on the red side. And I keep saying fuchsia, but I know probably a lot of you may have just like red. But either one will be totally fine. Okay, so here I've got this. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of copy the same theme I've been going with the whole time, with the same arms and stuff. I mean, if you want to add like, if you want to add no arms or little, I call them arms, but I mean, I don't know what you would call them, like branches or, I don't know, studs. Okay. There we go. So I'm just, yeah, I did the same thing, right? I pointed the tip of the angle brush the opposite direction that I'm painting to get my edge, I guess. And if any of you have painted, I'm sure that most of you have painted like a room in a house or whatnot. There's like an edging brush. This is essentially what it is. And to get that edge, you just kind of hold the brush outwards and you get that first edge, and then you can kind of fill in more freely. Not worry so much that you keep them inside the lines. Okay, so there we go. So I went a little bit over there. I mean, yeah, you could even do that. Make it like it's kind of sticking out in front of the cactus. I never really thought to do that, but I kind of like that. It's not, that's not part of the original painting, but kind of like the look that it's kind of on this side of the cactus instead of coming out the side, but you're always kind of experimenting. Okay, and then this one I'll do the same where this was a little bit lower and a little bit smaller. So I'm really just doing a little shape here. Like that. And then I'm going to fill it in now that I've done the lines, and there we go. So I don't really want to get too crazy with it. Just there we go. Okay, so that's this cactus, and then I'm gonna actually do like the lines of the little flower, and I really don't want to like overthink this one. It's, to me, like I just do it very loosely, like it's just like 4 little sprigs, and how I got like the tip at the top, I just put the tip of this brush. I'll do another one here just so you can see. And you just lay it there and you pull down, like this is with the pointy part facing the opposite direction again. And then you just put a little pressure down and swoop downwards, and you've got like a little point. And I should show you actually, because I I I I paint like so often that I sometimes forget that some of the brush strokes, like even when I was first starting, I was like so unsure of different things. But for those who don't know, I'm trying to find something dark so I can show you. But I guess I'll pick this up in case. Or this is like the best thing I can find right now, and I'll use a different darker color maybe so you guys can. This is my other crazy palette. Okay, so. Alright, so this is just totally a side part, nothing to do with this painting, but I want to show you this because it just came to my mind. But in regards to this brush, if you're a new acrylic painter or you're just wanting to learn any kind of brush strokes with this particular brush, what I find is really cool that this one is with this tip here. If you always like, it's kind of like a great brush for doing like a taper brush stroke. I call it a taper. I don't know what it would be called, but for doing trees or anything that tapers off into a fine point. So for instance, if you wanted to do, say, like a tree branch, what I do is I point the tip the opposite direction that I'm painting. So I'm going to paint this way. And I put it down, and it's held like pretty much straight out, and I'm going to kind of put pressure on it. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to ease off on the pressure and just, okay, nope, rewind. Just 1 second. I needed more paint on my brush and more water. This wood is really dry, so I'll try again here. So I water down my paint a bit more so it'll flow more, and then, so I do the same thing. I kind of just flick upwards, and if you see, it goes to like a nice fine kind of point, and you can kind of, this isn't a very good way to show you guys. It's not really showing up super well, but there we go. Maybe that's better. There we go. So just added a little more water. That wooden background, that's what I mean. If you're ever using a palette that has wood, I usually, even though there's paint stuck on this, that's my being impatient, but normally with this palette, that's why it's so clean. Normally I put like a layer of saran wrap over top of this, and then I'll just remove it after, and it's gonna take like all that, because like wood will just suck all the water out of your paint almost right away, unless it's a sealed kind of wood. There we go. So yeah, and some people are more comfortable going upwards, and some people like to paint something downwards. Okay, everyone, I'm back now. Hopefully this camera is on for all you guys now. Sorry for the cut off there. I've got some pictures in the meantime from you guys. They're pretty awesome. I'm not sure where I left off. You guys are doing awesome though. It's like I'm not sure because you must not have missed a whole lot because these look awesome. They're following along right where you should be, really. So I didn't really do a whole lot since then. I see that like some of you guys don't have the kind of branches off the sides of the cactuses, so I'm gonna just tell you what I did quickly. Hopefully it's And this is like fine for you guys to add in now because I'll just go over what I did. I basically kind of just came up with this smaller angle brush just because I find it better to do the smaller shapes with the smaller one. And I just kind of went in and I pointed the tip of the brush the opposite way I'm painting, and I just went along and did the edging of it, the initial shape, and then I filled it in. Same kind of way you did the original cactus shape. And then I went this way, the same way, and I did this one. And then all I did for this little flower shape, I guess, is if you take the tip of your brush and you point it the opposite way that you're painting, and I'll do another one over here just because you guys didn't get to see, but if you just kind of lay it down and you kind of put pressure on it and swoop downwards like that, it'll do that nice like fine tip, and you've got these kind of little sprigs here and there. And this is also, sorry if I mentioned, but it's just this dark color here. So yeah, I did that, sort of waiting for this to dry, but now that the camera cut it and everything, I'm sure that you guys have had plenty of time for your background to dry. Or for these like kind of cactuses to dry a little bit. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch back to this this larger angle brush, and I'm also going to pull out the pointed, well, I call it the pointy brush, but I believe it's called a round brush, or even a liner, but it basically looks like this. So this one here, you're just looking for something with a finer tip that you can do little dots with. I don't know if you can see that properly, but it just has a little tip on it. Now you can start, like whenever doing these little kind of, these little like tips. This is really like what's tying off the end of this painting actually, and you're just going to go in and you're going to add little dots all down in the shape of this shape. This one here is a little bit different. Like these ones pretty much just go straight down, but as you can see at the very top of each of these like lines, and I kind of just divided it into four, like 1, 2, 3, 4 sections of the canvas to kind of give it that rounded feel. But I mean, there's no rule to that. If you want to add like maybe 1 or less lines, like you could even just do 2, whatever you want. But at the top of them, if you round it a little bit, like the candy cane shape, just follow this line, like the perimeter, then it'll give it that rounded look at the top. And the rest is just basically like a straight line. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and, like these colors here, now this has had a chance to dry, so I'll show you. I'm going to go in and I'm going to grab a little bit of that lighter green again. And I'm just going to really just highlight, this one here, and this one here, and just really give them that final kind of, so I laid my shape in, and I'm going to just do like just that area. Maybe I'll just skip that part and come down here and do a little highlight down there. So now that I've added my kind of highlight and my shape, I always rinse my brush off again because I'm going to blend again, and then I'll dab it off like that. And then you just go back in and you lay that brush flat again between the two colors, and you just sweep back and forth, long brush strokes, and all the way down. And there, it just like gently blends it. I'm not even really going to rinse my brush in between these because there's not a lot of paint I'm working with. It shouldn't be bad. There. Okay, so yeah, just lightly kind of, I might actually bring that out to the edge a little bit better. There. You don't need to overthink it a whole lot. Kind of sweep a couple times and soften it a little bit. And then these two I want to be like extra bright. So I'm going to add, this is like my straight green, like that original green we started off with. Can you see that? Like that. And I'm going to add that just beside these ones again so that they're like, notice I'm not really doing that with this one, so that's what's going to make the difference. And this one here, I'm sweeping, but I'm also going to bring like all the way over like that. And same with this one. I'm sweeping back and forth, and then I'm kind of just, I'm going to go all the way over. You can just like kind of loosely rub that over a little bit. And when I get to this side, I kind of do that way, like the curve of that. And again, yeah, you can do that like as many times as you want. I mean, you can even add a little bit more yellow over here into this like light color and a little bit more green, and make a really, really more bit brighter of that lime green and add some white in. And then we've got a nice lime green, limeish kind of green again. And then I kind of like just wiped a bit off because I don't want to have like too much paint on my brush. So sometimes I just wipe it on the edge. You really don't want clumps at this stage. And then I'm just going to kind of go in again. And you see how bright that is? Like it's a nice, new, freshly mixed, like really bright one. And see, like now this one's here looking darker. These ones are really bright. And again, I only added the shape. I didn't start blending because I have too much paint on my brush, so it won't give that nice blended effect. So I'm going to take this now and rinse it in my water, even off the bottom of the cup, and then I'm going to dab. And these are just really the finer details that I'm adding to the painting. I mean, if you're not wanting to get too crazy into the shadowing and whatnot, you don't even have to do these steps. Everybody has their own preference for how much they want to do with this kind of thing. But there, that's good enough for me. So now I'm going to take this pointed brush or liner or spotter or round brush. It's actually a 0 round. And this one actually here is by Princeton. I think in the materials they may have put one of just the regular old like dollar store brushes. I mean, honestly, they work just as well. I find it's just here, same thing. This sort of pointed brush. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, like, what I do is actually I take a little bit of this lighter color over here and I add a little bit of white. And you essentially want it to look mostly white, but it's kind of nice to have a little bit of that green hue in it sometimes, just so it's not so bright initially. And then if you want to add, like, it gives kind of a color variance. So it's like some are like a little bit green and more green, and some aren't as, it basically makes some not as bright, essentially. So I'm going to follow along. I'm going to put this kind of like right beside, so you guys will be able to see kind of where I'm going with. But right here on this side of the cactus, and that's a good example too, like when I said some aren't as bright, because what you're going to do is you're going to take all these like kind of muted down whites, and you're going to start doing all the darker like edges of the cactus. And again, this part, like the only part I leave is this top part of this cactus, but otherwise I just kind of like dot it, and you don't have to overthink that either. I'm just kind of loosely, some of them I'll string down a little bit like that or something, and then I just put little dots all the way down. And here too, I'm going to do the same thing, only this one goes all the way around, but I'm going to probably save only just go to about halfway with the muted down green. And then here, I'm going to do the same thing. And like for the most part, it looks like white right now, but when you put the straight titanium white, you'll see the change there. So now I'm going to rinse my brush off because I'm switching colors, and I'm going to dab it off. And then I'll show you now when I go into this straight titanium white, you'll be hopefully able to see the variation, like the difference in the brightness, and one side's probably going to look a bit brighter. And that's kind of what you want. There we go. And just kind of string some of them together like that. I don't know, I just like to make it a little not so perfect. So there, that's really all for that one. And then here's a part that I noticed. So it's kind of like a beach ball where like it kind of curves out with the lines. So if you do that, you kind of section it, like if you can visually picture like 4 lines, like going, or even 3, I think it would be. So you just kind of, you don't have to worry too much with the shades on this one. You just kind of get those initial lines down. So I'm going to go right down here. So you picture it's kind of like a line going. You can even draw them out very lightly if you want to. Like that first. These lines that follow the outside perimeter. This really adds, I think, a nice touch to the cactuses. It really adds, it's just a simple little step, but it really adds like some personality to the meats and its detail. There we go. Makes them kind of pop out with life a bit. And then this one here, I'm going to do the same thing. It's also still curved at the top. I don't want to have too much paint on my brush, so really you don't want any like kind of crazy big clogs. But here, yeah, I'm just holding my brush really at the tip to like, I'm trying to have like not actually very much control over my brush, which I find too sometimes like if you hold it way where I'm holding it just at the tip, it kind of makes it the shapes more random too, like and not so precise. And then I'm gonna drag a couple of these down like that. And see what I mean? I'm just kind of pulling, and I'll dot and just like that. And then I might do like I'm gonna do a curve, but I might do another one right here. My kind of aim is to have like 4 equal sections ish. Okay, so that's my first initial ones, and then I'm going to do the same thing for this as I did for this one. So it's just like a little, oh, that one's kind of off the side. Okay. As long as you keep that like nice curve, it'll, yeah, there's no perfect by any means. There we go. Yeah, there's that. And then see, like just those dots really like kind of make it really pop out and show that it's like got the purples and that it's a cactus. I went to on the saying earlier that hers looked like cucumbers at one point, but yeah, hopefully this will help with that. Okay. And then I'm actually going around the perimeter of these little arms. And then I see I forgot to do the little arm here, so if you want to just do a little shape here. I'm using this little brush, but you could probably even use the other one. So just adding that in, a little arm going, and that's optional also. I think it's kind of cute for me. It just looks a little bit of personality, I guess. And I think it was Bobby said he's going to add some cool sunglasses to one of them, so I can't wait to see what that's going to turn out like. This one here, I did add a bit of black to my palette, so I'm going to grab just a little pinch of that now. I have it on my brush, and I'm going to add this into this like reddish kind of green mixture, and I might even add a little bit more green. It's not really super exact or anything, just a little, like I'm adding like another pinch of green just till I get sort of less black there. You can even add a little bit of red if you want, but and just because this I find isn't very dark in contrast to this, like this color was kind of almost close to this anyways, so I want it to really kind of pop. So that's where I think like the black helps in some cases when you've already got one color that's mixed in to look very dark, but then you need to overlay something or overlap it, and it really doesn't have that kind of pop, and you can't really mix a darker color because that's sort of the darkest you can get with your mixture there. So that's that one. I'm gonna just kind of leave that probably to dry for a minute because it's just new, and I'll come back to that, and I'll do the same thing where I'm kind of just adding a little bit of green to it, and then the little dots all around and stuff. But this one here, this little flower, you can just go like with your red or your magenta and add. I'm just taking the tip of my brush, and I'm not going to overthink this one either. I'm just going to really kind of just pop in some color. Just went like inside those lines. I left a little bit of black showing behind it. And just add a little bit of color there. And I'm rinsing my brush because I'm going to switch colors here for a second, and I'm drying it off. And then I'm going to come actually back in with this really, really dark color. Because I always like to add just a tiny little, so all I'm doing is literally like a line. Just like that. And it just kind of like helps separate the flower from the cactus, I guess. And I like to kind of, since I've got this black on my brush already, and I hope I'm not jumping ahead of anyone, but I might like to like just kind of come and really darken the one side of the cactus with this really deep dark color. And then just kind of softening that, like I'll go along the edge and just sort of rub that a bit, like that. And then the same with the other side. So I actually am really going to switch my littler or my smallest angular brush there, because it's better for like doing those kinds of lines. But it's this one here, and I'm just dabbing it off so it doesn't have a bunch of water on it. I'm going to go into that deep color again, like this one. And I'm just going to go along right here, along the edge, just to kind of give it that kind of bolder, really deep, dark color. It really kind of helps with the shadow in there. And I'm just laying on my shape first, so that like kind of backwards candy look. And then I'll come in, I'll rinse my brush because I'm going to shade a little bit here, dab it off, and I'm just going to very, very slowly and carefully just kind of very gently blend that in. You don't really want a whole lot of darkness there. I'm working with such little paint there too. I really just started with enough to coat my brush. You don't want it to come like all the way over. It's really just to be like this one little edge, just to kind of help that edge pop a little bit. And I'll probably do the same thing on this one here. So just kind of do that. Gives it some definition. It helps like pull it out from the background a bit. There we go. I'm going to check that chat to make sure that everyone is kind of following along okay. We're getting really close to the end of the painting. I have a couple of more little steps just to totally tie this off before we get finished here. But we're really, really close, and I can't wait to see how everyone's doing. I'm going to do a quick check on the chat to make sure everyone's good for right now, and then we'll do the last couple of steps, and then I'll just we'll end for tonight. So I'm just going to do a quick check, make sure nothing's going too fast for anyone here. Just let me know in the chat if you can, if you're still following along okay. I hate to jump ahead of anyone. We'll just give it a minute there to make sure. Okay, hope I didn't lose anyone. Let's see here. Give that a chance to dry, I guess. Okay, let's see here. Okay, I'm not sure if the chat's delayed or if I just wanted to make sure there before I continued on, but I'm gonna just wave hello and like I hope everyone can see. Maddie, can you see that right now? Okay. Well, I'll continue on. Hopefully everyone can kind of is with me now, but I think that this video will stay up afterwards. So if you need to kind of go back to it, so I'm just gonna add a little bit here of this green. It's just a straight green, and I had a little bit of the lighter green as well that I grabbed. And I'm just gonna kind of go around and kind of fill in this arm a little bit, so it's not so dark. But the edges of it are still left a little bit dark. I'm using my finger now to paint. And just basically go around like that. And I'm filling it in a little bit, just flat like I did with the rest of them. And you don't have to worry too much about the shading of that one. Just kind of as long as you keep the back of it kind of a darker and leave the inside lighter, it's not gonna. That's really all you need to do with that. And then I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna grab. And I apologize if anybody is asking any questions right now or anything, because I think my chat is delayed, so I'm not seeing if you guys are writing anything. But I know that you are, because my niece told me that she's seeing messages come up. So for whatever reason, mine's kind of stopped and it's cracked. So I'm going to just go around and I'm going to add little dots to this one here. And I might even add just a little bit of lightness right at the top. And then I'm going to rinse my brush because I'm going to shade a little tiny bit here. And then I'm just going to kind of rub that in like a circular and just make it lighter just in this area. So we just work around and it just stays light with a little bit of a lighter green there. So I'm not sure if that's showing up a whole lot there, but just makes it a bit brighter at the very top. Okay, so that's really all of the main details. The other little thing I wanted to show you guys is, and this will kind of go hand in hand with the effect I showed you earlier with the brush strokes where you can taper. Only you can rotate between this brush here, which is the littler of the angular brushes, but for this one, I'm going to show you the same similar technique, but only with the round brush or pointy brush. So I'm going to actually dip right into the titanium white, and this will probably be your final step, other than I may add a little bit more red to that flower, but otherwise, so what you want to do is, if you see on these cactuses here, there's some brighter kind of little like prickles that are standing out. This is my signature here, so just not that part here, but if you just, these areas here, if you go in and you take just a titanium white, you see that's very bright. I'm just dabbing in just enough to coat my brush. So what, I'll just give an example. I'll put one right here, for instance. And if I do the little dot first, so I just have a nice little amount on my brush, just enough to kind of add the dot. And then what I do is I sink the tip of it just right into that kind of blob of white. And if you do this without like, just try not to hesitate. And I got a little dot there. I'll have to fix that up later. But if you go like this and you kind of just swoop outwards like that, and don't hesitate, you'll get that nice little line. And I'm going to give a little bit of water on my brush. And sometimes, if you want to do these really kind of, they're almost translucent. It goes to like a very fine paint. Sometimes if you add like kind of like a teardrop amount of water on your palette like this, and then a little tiny bit of white, and you kind of mix those in together. That's looking very dark, but it will show up pretty bright because it has a little bit of the other paint on my brush still. But what I'm doing is I add a little, now again, another little bit of water. So what you want is something that's not totally like dripping down, but it's very, very watered down paint, almost like a watercolor. And then you come from here and you see it'll help you to do those to kind of carry your paint further. So you just do like kind of like this star shape there. And then you're gonna leave that for like a minute, and then you're gonna just do one white dot in the middle. So I'll show you like as I go. So I'm gonna do maybe one just right here. So I just do a dot, and then I pull. And I just kind of do it. And I think it's too much, and you just hold in the middle. You can practice like too, like on a separate piece of paper or canvas if you're not totally comfortable with these. I'm kind of just going with the flow and adding them in random places. I'm not sure if these are exactly where they were in the original, but I'm not really worrying about the centers of them too much. I'm going to add a little more white to the mixture. And then just go like this. Flick outwards. Like that. And then I'm going to make one here. It's like a little thick one for this. And maybe just one more over here. And then already good. That. Start in the center. You just kind of add even ones all around. So, I mean, you can add as many or as few of these or none at all. It's just a little kind of detail. So, there we go. That one will have a few more little lines a little bit. All right, so that's pretty much it. We've got the main idea here. Some little details you can add after is just like I'm dipping right into the fuchsia here, and I'm just going to really brighten that up a bit. So it's really showing that red that it's coming through. There we go. And then the final thing I'm going to do is, and this will probably be the last step that we'll do for this piece here, is I'm going to go in with the titanium white, just straight. I've rinsed my brush and I've patted it off, and it's pretty much a dry brush, and I've coated it with titanium white, and you're just going to go in, and on the middle of each of these, if you did these, you're just going to add a little white dot, and it just kind of gives it that center, like the brightness. Like that, and like that. Oh, and then, oh, one here. Okay, and then this is also a nice touch is if you go along some of these ones that are on the brighter side of your cactus, and just kind of, it doesn't have to be like every single dot, but if you add a few kind of lighter dots over top of the dots you've already done, but just on the one side, it really kind of even amplifies that like that original kind of like light to darkness effect. And I just like add that sometimes. There we go. And we go all the way around this and actually add the other dots for this particular cactus. There we go. I might even add like even just a few, even though this is still bright paint, just a couple on this side. Just like, oh. There's a couple, like not as many, but maybe just to kind of, and this one here, whoops, this one here, I'll add some around the arm of it, just to really like separate that arm from the background. And finish it all off, I may add a little darkness to the a little shadow underneath his arm here, just to kind of put it on the bottom there, like that. It's just, oh, sorry, this is the dark, like, the dark fuchsia, like, kind of mixture with nature, this black, like, blackish kind of fuchsia, this point, there. And really, that's all there is, and then, I always say to everybody, don't forget to sign your masterpiece, so I'm going to grab, I like to use this brush, or if I have one around, I like to actually use, like a acrylic paint brush, actually, because they're like a marker, but they're filled with acrylic paint, and you can get really, really fine lines. But anyways, I'm going to just add my signature at the bottom, and just tap. Stick that there. There we go. just really want to say, I'll pop over here for a sec. I'm not sure. Here, I'll move this way. Thank you all very much for painting, whoever was able to make it out and whoever was popping by. And if hopefully this video afterwards, once I end my live, will save on my page, and anyone who missed it, who did want to come, can watch it again, and hopefully you can pause and rewind and whatnot. Sorry for the video cut out there. I am still sort of new to this, so hopefully as my videos come out more, they're going to get more smooth and less video cutting off. Anyways, yeah, so I hope to do this now at least once a week. And also simultaneously, I have some paint nights that I've kind of pre-recorded, and I'm finding I'm getting better and better at the editing, but it is pretty time consuming when you're very new to it. We're going to be doing, like, this is one of the ones, for instance, since it's very close. This is one we're going to do. This is actually really cool because it's a black light painting. So I'm going to actually turn all the lights off, and everything's going to be glowing. So if you want to come out to that one, I may do that one next week. I'm still kind of getting that piece together. We're going to, we'll get some glow sticks, and we'll have a time with that. But also, I'm doing also some more, like, I guess, in-depth paintings where they're going to be a little more detail. I'll show you. Anyone is still tuned in here, who's watching later. This is something, I'm doing some more, kind of these ones, obviously, they got quite a bit more detail than this one. But stuff like this, I really do enjoy, and I'm going to be doing some longer videos with step-by-steps on different painting techniques. I'm a self-taught artist, so I'm going to just teach the way that I've learned so far, and I'm always learning all the time and experimenting, but I can always show you guys how I've got the techniques that I've learned. And I also, in time, would love to do some longer, and I'll be doing some longer courses and whatnot for different styles that I do. And so, yeah, I really wanted to say thanks, everyone, for tuning in, and I can't wait to, honestly, like, see your turnouts of these. I've seen sort of, like, the midway ones, and thanks for sending, because I was a little nervous there. I didn't know how long the video was off there. So, yeah, thanks again, and I guess we'll tune off for tonight, and I hope that some of you may be back, maybe next week when we do another one, and I'll have the events and details posted as soon as possible. So thanks again, and see you soon.